yeah, like Mark said, I've been working with FODIP for a good number of years now on this issue of Israel-Palestine, which seems to have dominated our screens more recently. And I guess one of the things that we know at FODIP is that whenever there's a flashpoint, it then has an impact on our communities here. And one of the reasons why FODIP was really set up those 12 years ago was really to talk about what's happening in the region, but not allowing that important to our communities. Sadly, we've seen that happen quite a lot because of the recent escalation. So I guess in terms of what the Bringing People Together project, before I go into that, we run, as FODIP, we run a number of projects. We run listening facilitation, we run study tours to the region, we provide advice and guidance to universities, schools and organisations. And one of the things that we find is actually, I think Sophia mentioned it earlier on, it's the elephant in the room. And one of the things that many interfaith organisations do not really discuss and tend to say, leave it at the door before you walk in. And we talk more about our faith and what brings us together than what divides us. This was really set up, FODIP was really set up to indulge in that a little bit more, and a safe space to have positive conversations and positive dialogue on this, to increase the awareness, but also to see each other as humans. We don't push a political position or any position other than the safety and dignity and self-determination for everybody in the region. And you'll notice the organisation is called Forum for Discussion of Israel and Palestine, and it was purposefully kind of kept with Israel and Palestine in, because that itself can divide many communities on, actually it's not Israel or it's not Palestine, or, you know, and all of those kind of issues. And Mark mentioned earlier on about conflict or situation or issue or whatever it is that you want to call it, and that's really what it is. For many people, it's not a conflict. For some people, it is a conflict. So we're not here to tell people how to term it, but what we have been able to do is hold safe spaces for people to talk about these issues that absolutely affect us and impact us as communities here, more so for the Muslims, Jews and Christians, because we have a vested interest in the Holy Land, but also other people for lots of different reasons. So we have engaged in the Tough Options project that you alluded to there, Mark, with people of other faiths unknown. And we called it Tough Options really because it really is a tough option to have dialogue. And I think Sophia can back me on this, and many others can back me on this, that actually even coming together in a space with somebody who holds a completely different perception to your own is difficult, let alone having a conversation about it. So, which is why it was named Tough Options. So this particular project is funded by the National Lottery, Bringing People Together Fund. It brings young people together from Northern Ireland and from the Greater Manchester region. Manchester, because we're based in Manchester, we are a national charity, we are a national organisation, but this particular project focuses with people, younger people around this area. And it was really to kind of look at both the different conflicts through the lens of each other, to help understand a bit more about the skills and tools that each of those communities have adopted to navigate their way through this, and then share their learning through to their peers into their own communities. We were actually on the last part of this particular program. So it was a 2-year program. We had a number of residentials where we took the young people from England over to Castle in Corrymeela. We worked in partnership with Corrymeela in Belfast, and they came over to England. Now, we were in the last quarter of our project when everything around the world changed for everyone. And I guess one of the things that we had to do was reprogram and relook at how we were going to move forward, because that's really how we were looking at this. Dialogue was extremely difficult, actually non-existent at this time, and it was very much about how do we move forward, creating that safe space still for those young people in particular to be able to talk about what's happening for them, but also how do we move together as a community together and bridging that divide. All the different people, they're mainly sort of like those kind of 2 or 3 communities, they're all in different positions, they're in different places, and I think it's really important for us to address that and acknowledge that. We have to understand that people responding to what's happening at different levels, in different ways. We at FODIP as a collective, but also individually, we've seen how this is really polarized communities and really increased tensions and increased anti-Semitism and Islamophobia, anti-Muslim hate, anti-Palestinian, anti-Arab hate. It's incited lots of hate between communities, and it's been framed as a Jewish-Muslim issue, very much so. And terminology and language and what we're seeing on the media also has an impact on how people are responding, especially for younger people who are posting and reposting, you know, lots of stuff that they don't necessarily watch the end to, but they've kind of seen stuff and they're reposting it that might be triggering other people off, and that's just escalating and heightening those divides, I guess, in our communities. Now, FODIP has been asked to come into schools, colleges, and universities to help them to work their way through this. And those interfaith organisations who've always said, let's leave the elephant out, have asked us to come in and help them, because this is something that has actually really changed the way they've worked, because many moderate voices now are also questioning and wanting leaders to make a stance or take a position. And what we notice at flashpoints like this, it becomes quite binary. So it's either you're with them or you're with us, and that's really that's very dangerous. But it's then trying to find ways sensitively to bring those perspectives of communities together. And it's not asking people to think of you know, a completely different way. It's really kind of saying, let's hold this space to listen to one another, to validate each other's feelings and where they're coming from, because many of these people who may have family, friends, people that they know that are living in the region, but also because they connect to them through either their faith or their identity. So it becomes quite real. And it is one of the things that actually is, you know, as at FODIP, we've always said it's one of the most contentious issues, but also one that divides everybody very much. And I guess that's what we've seen. We have put together, and I will share this with Mark, and maybe he can send it out later on, is a number of different media sources, and we encourage people to diversify their media sources. Not only different types of media, but also different sources. So, you know, kind of lefts and the rights and Israeli and Palestinian. And I will send a number of, you know, we're not endorsing any of them. We're just asking you to kind of be able to listen and to hear and to understand the different perspectives, which also then allows you to kind of look at what is propaganda and what is fake news, because we know that there's quite a lot of that happening. So I guess one of the things that we do FODIP is work together as Muslims, Jews, and Christians. So in our team, we have Muslims, Jews, and Christians. Our board is also made up of Muslims, Jews, and Christians. We don't represent that community or those communities, but we reflect those communities. It enables people who are part of those conversations to feel like there is somebody who might be able to understand where they're coming from, or they can resonate with them. So what we have gone and done is worked in many schools. If they've asked us to come in where they've kind of had some issues, we've been able to model that behaviour, having those very different perspectives and opinions, but be able to sit together in the same room has been really, really important and I think very empowering. I think for many people, it's just been able to validate what they've been feeling. A lot of the Muslim community have felt like they're being silenced, you know, there's a lot of Jewish community saying, you know, it's not a Jewish, it feels like it's become a Jewish Muslim issue. We're being targeted, we're being attacked, and we have seen an increase of anti-Semitism and Islamophobia in this country, but also globally. And that also reflects how we term things and how we talk about this. We know our political leaders haven't been helpful and actually has probably exacerbated some of those issues within our communities. And I guess some of those things haven't helped bridge that divide. I think there's a lot of trauma, there's a lot of grief. We're going to see it for many years to come. I also feel that interfaith world or that particular space will have to change, and we'll need to look at how we move forward collectively in a sensitive way, because people are still, it's ongoing, like you said, Mark, earlier on when you first started, it's an ongoing issue. It's still not come to an end. It's how do we navigate through this? And I guess that's where I'll kind of leave it up to there, really. We are, at the same time, there has been some positivity from our younger people, but also our community members, where we've come together and held vigils. We've tried to find ways to come together and break bread, bringing Muslim and Jewish women together and saying, you know, we need space to keep us together. Even if it's just holding space and not talking to one another, but just being in that same space, like I said earlier on, even that is very difficult. Mainly, a lot of that has been happening because it's been established or pre-7th of October, if you want to say, good connections and relationships, which is why it's really important when we look at the 32 steps manual to create those relations, those bonds, those understanding, and to see each other as human beings, because otherwise it's really easy to dehumanize one another if we don't have that, you know, a humanized approach or experience.